No. Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Sarah Sino Atta. I'm the social media manager at Local Grown Salads. I have a background in environmental studies and sustainability consulting. Today we have here our founder and CEO, Zale Tabakman, and we'll be talking about the origin story of local grown salads, why LGS exists, what problem it solves, and Zale's personal opinions on the company. So to start off, Zale, what inspired you to start local grown salads?
Okay, so I can tell you the long story, I can tell you the short story. So I'll tell you the short version of the story. Um, Back in the day, I was newly divorced, and my kids, I have five kids, and
Okay.
they were all teenagers at the time. And I lived, and their mother lived, a couple blocks away. So the kids used to come back and forth, and they'd stay with me a couple days, stay with her a couple days, and it was all good. And I used to have to feed them dinner every single night. So if you can imagine five teenagers, a couple of boys, three boys, two girls, a lot of food. At the same time, I was doing, and we always like to have salads at dinner. I'm big believer in salads. I'm not an organic kind of guy, but always we had to have salads. At the same time, I was doing a thing called SAD consulting in Canada, scientific research experimental development, which meant is I had to go into companies and I had to talk to them about their technical challenges they were having, and I'd help them get back funds from the Canadian government to do that. So it's like a consulting gig. And I had two very interesting customers. I had one customer who made sandwiches. He made some 3,000 sandwiches a day,
Mm.
and he would produce them for restaurants. And they would be not restaurants, for hotels. And every hotel would have a slightly different variation on the sandwiches they want. And one of the more interesting things was all the different, the way they make the sandwiches, what they would put in there, what the greens were. There's a lot of other interesting cases, but he was telling me that the problem was he couldn't always get the kind of green he'd want. So he'd use a radicchio, for example, and sometimes radicchio wasn't available, or he'd want other very esoteric type lettuces or herbs and stuff like that, and they weren't available. So he'd always be swatching around. So there was two core things. One was that they weren't available, and two is he was always looking for sort of unique items to put into sandwiches to give the flavors. He wasn't doing peanut butter and jam sandwiches, so more complex. The third thing is I had a client who was doing oxyfertigation, or not oxyfertigation. They had a piece of technology that would create dissolved oxygen. When you put dissolved oxygens are really, really tiny bubbles, and you put them in water. And when you feed grow plants with water with dissolved oxygen, and with or you feed fish actually, or any sort of mammal with dissolved oxygen, they grow very quickly and very fast. He was also telling me about all the money that could be available in vegetables and how much thousands of dollars and Canada was importing them, and it just got very complicated. So I had all these three things going. And then one day I was riding my bicycle, and I was thinking about all this stuff. I was thinking my kids, right? Feeding my kids. Everybody has that problem. Like, how do I keep making the salads and stuff like that? And I was thinking about these customers having to import food from California, Arizona, and Mexico. And then I had this sandwich guy who couldn't get half the stuff he wanted on a regular basis.
Mm.
And I was riding my bike. I used to ride bikes a lot. And I'd be looking at the roofs of all the buildings in Toronto and saying, like, why the heck is Canada not growing stuff on the roofs of buildings? And I said, oh, how complicated could it be? And then I started doing the math, and I have one particular superpower, which is making really cool Excel spreadsheets. Anyhow, so I was made this Excel spreadsheet to figure out how much money could actually be made on the roofs of buildings. It turns out with one layer, the way a typical farm is, you couldn't make any money. So what I thought was, well, what happens if we do it higher, one on top of the other? Obviously, I wasn't the first person to think of it. And I started using my friend Google, and Google and I were looking around, and we discovered this whole concept of indoor vertical farming where you stack the farms one on top of the other. And but I want to grow because I'm making salads, right? So I want to grow a wide variety of products. There's a lot of other stuff that was involved in this. Realized that you couldn't do the stacked beds, and so we started with the vertical towers, and the story goes on and on from there. But you don't want the technical part; you want just the emotional part of the story. That's how I got into indoor vertical farming and starting our technology.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, yeah, that's really inspiring to see how personal interactions and personal missions can turn into such a scalable solution for what we see around us right now. Based on that, what do you think makes your approach to indoor vertical farming different from traditional methods?
oh, okay. So the traditional methods are those bunk beds, one stacked on top of the other. We are a tower growing thing. So we go vertically and we grow vertically and we grow the plants grow out, which means that we can grow all sorts of things that the stacked bunk beds guys can't do. So that's like core number one. And core number second, that's number one, the physical how we do it. How we do our planting is very unique. We have these things called seed cartridges. So we actually put the the uh, the seeds and the substrate, which we use as soil. That's another differentiation. Everybody else is hydroponic, and hydroponic is a cool idea. It's got some challenges with growing. So we use actually soil. So it's kind of number three. And the number four, I guess, is the software system that we use to track everything all the way from the seed to the plate. And we have multiple ways of growing with multiple grow formulas, and the software technology, you know, would be an hour discussion in itself. But essentially, how we grow, the fact that we're using soil and not water, and we have this whole software system. And thirdly, we have this cartridge system, which allows us to do our planting separate from where I actually do our growing.
That's great that there's a big differentiator. It's not just vertical farming, it's like smarter, it's leaner, and it's more adaptive. And that's really good to hear. Those are all the questions we have for you today, and thank you for having us. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day. Yeah,
You too. Bye bye now.
bye.